I know.
I did that. I totally did it. All right, you're up when you're ready.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Thank you all for coming out tonight. I'd like to call this meeting to order. We acknowledge the traditional territory of the neutral Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee peoples. I have not received any regrets this evening. However, there are 3 directors who are not present. Can I have a motion on the table to adopt the agenda as presented? Vice Chair Phillips.
I'd like to motion that we adjust the schedule here today to move the Fred Nichols Campus Center air handling discussion to the top of the agenda to help facilitate Chris Turner's plans for the evening.
Okay, got a seconder.
I'll
right.
second.
Director Murphy. Would you like to speak to your motions? Any discussion on the matter? Are there any opposed to the motion? Any abstentions? As I see none, the motion passes with unanimous consent. So we will go to the Fred Nichols Campus Center air handling infrastructure discussion. Chris, you can take it away.
Yeah, thanks everyone for moving this up for me. That's greatly appreciated. Last time we met, I was to take away a couple of questions from the board to facilities and assets management staff, and I have those responses. The first question was around, could we not, with the new air handling system, start the chilling earlier in the year and leave it on later in the year if we didn't go with the DX solution to therefore minimize the uncomfortable periods? The response I got from FAM to that one was no, given that the new system that they want to put in place, again, I don't know the technical reasons, but they just said it would not have the capabilities to allow them to change it over earlier and later, and that they would need to stay with the same cycle that they have in place now. So that was the response to that question. The second question, which is I think a little bit more important for this group tonight, was I'd been tasked with asking them, is there any movement on the $60,000 that would cost to do the analysis and planning phase? The response that I got to that one was actually no, and in fact the $60,000 does not include disbursements, contingency, and tax. So we're actually looking at a total for the planning phase probably closer to 75,000, depending on the contingencies involved. And then the other piece to that was that, say we went ahead with the planning phase, we spent the $75,000, and then at the end of that, with whatever response they came back to us and said, and then at that point we said, no, we don't think we'd like to move forward on the actual installation of the DX system, so we'll leave it at that. I was informed that there would then actually be additional costs that we would be responsible for, because they would have to then change the planning for the building back to a non-DX system implementation of the air chillers. So that would cost a bit more money due to the rework needed on their end. They had no idea what that actually would be, so I can't even comment to that, but it would be a few $1,000s at least. So original approval from the board, which I guess has to be revoted on anyway because of the lack of quorum last time, said to move ahead at a cost of $60,000. So tonight, the additional information is that we're actually looking at costs probably roughly, again, I don't know for sure, in the neighborhood of 15,000 more to that, closer to $75,000. And then the second piece is after that planning is done, if we don't want to move ahead with the actual installation of the DX system, there would be additional costs to rework the planning. So a significant more initial cost from our perspective than the 60,000 plan last week. Nothing other than that has changed. We did get word that the actual implementation, if we said go ahead, they still don't even know when that would be, because they would have to figure out how they're going to afford the air handlers to begin with, and the chillers. So even if we did go ahead with this planning, when it would actually be implemented is up in the air right now. So I'll open it up for any questions or discussion at this point.
Vice Chair Phillips?
Yeah, so just to clarify on the first question that you had answered from them. So we would not be able to turn on the air conditioning during the fringe months, even if we had installed the system?
If we install the system, we would be able to run it during those months. What my comment was that could we avoid installing that DX system and just turn on the chillers earlier with the without the, like, just move it up 2 weeks earlier and leave it on 2 weeks earlier without the DX system. So it's kind of a compromise solution, and it doesn't give us full control during all of the shoulder seasons, but at least it gives us a bit wider of a window. So if we didn't go with the DX, it wouldn't be as bad. And that's what they said no to. They said, no, we still have to stick to the original schedule of not turning it on until June.
Okay. And, if I may still then, that was one of the bigger benefits I think we had agreed upon at last board meeting. And from the sounds of it, at least from my perspective, with increased costs and a lot of unknown variables with the cost of the actual installation itself, it doesn't really seem responsible at this point to move forward with this planning phase. It seems kind of all over the place, and with a lot of money like that, I don't know if I'm super comfortable just giving that away for something we're not. Still sounds like there's a lot up in the air that they don't even really know. Those are my 2 cents on the matter.
Director Murphy?
I also agree with that. I feel like it is a little bit too up in the air for us to kind of go forward with it, because worst comes to worst, we do go forward with it and then they can't do it and we're out all of that money when we already kind of had doubts about it and it was kind of a long discussion. If that makes sense.
Okay, are there any further questions, any further topics of discussion? Sorry, Director Boucher.
Actually, I'd like to hear from the CEO first before I ask my question.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, when we were kind of talking about this in August, before the August board meeting, like, even operationally, we don't actually have a recommendation here. It was, I kind of pushed it forward as a brief to have it as a discussion, because while it is horrifically expensive for a lot of unknowns at this point, it's never going to be cheaper than this. So I just, however the board goes with this, like, I don't think there's a strong opinion one way or the other. So don't feel any kind of operational pressure that we desperately need you to vote it one way or the other.
Go ahead, Director Boucher.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to ask, like, what was the advice from operations? Because obviously this is going to impact, you know, like the operation of our student union, right, in the shoulder months. So I honestly don't feel one way or another. I feel like it is quite expensive. Again, as the other directors and as the other director and the vice chair have noted, there's a lot up in the air for a very large sum of money. I would ponder to think, how much, what else we could use, what more value can we use that money for? If it's really not necessary, I, and also, sorry, I did have one question I did want to ask, like, where would this be getting funded from? Is this basically all students paying for it? Or is it just the Waterloo campus that's basically contributing to this cost, right? So.
I can tackle that question. So it wouldn't, if we did go ahead with the installation of the DX system after we pay the initial design phase money. So we're looking at, 75,000 for design, approximately 450 for the actual DX installation. So we're over $500,000. We wouldn't go specifically to the students and ask for an additional fee to support that cost. Probably that would just come out of cash reserves that we have in the bank right now, or we would set aside some money over the next year that we would potentially otherwise use for something else for this purpose. And it would just come from our general funds, which is kind of we don't specifically set aside or have money, Waterloo or Brantford specific out of our general fund. So it would just come out of that common pot of money. And the other point I just wanted to add to that too was that if we don't go ahead with this DX system, which as I said, would ultimately be over $500,000 in cost anyway, the university is still at some point in the next few years going to move ahead with the replacement of the air handling units and the chillers, which is a multi-million-dollar project. And they're going to come to Phil and I and whoever the president is at that point and ask us to contribute our share to that. So we will ultimately be on the hook for something because of our operating agreement that we have with the university for the Fred Nichols building. So there will be money going out the door at some point. So, and again, it could be a quite substantial amount. So I just wanted the board to be aware of that.
So Vice Chair Phillips.
To your point as well, Phil, about but it's not necessarily going to get cheaper for the system. The way that I understand it, the reason we're considering this is because the university's moving ahead with this particular organization that's facilitating this. If we decide we don't want to do it right now because of all the unknowns regarding cost and how this is going to play out over the next couple of years, and this is something we still do think is valuable to students, maybe it's something we can shop around for a little bit more. If we decide in the future we do want to do this, I'm not saying it might be cheaper than it is right now per se, but maybe a little more clarity or more of a plan. That would make me feel a lot better about spending student dollars. And right now, I feel uncomfortable doing so.
Yeah. Personally, I completely agree with Vice Chair. I think that there's just too much unknowns, too many ambiguities at this point. I think we have to ice this for a little bit until we explore our options a little bit more and more information comes. So Dr. Barushi, go ahead.
I have echoing the vice chair's comments, and the other note that eventually the university will have to upgrade its air handling units. I'd like to come, I guess, to a compromise, knowing that the university will be in the future, and we will essentially have to be compelled to upgrading with them. I would like the university to maybe, as the vice chair noted, shop around, see if we can get more definitive answers or better value. That's number one. And then number two, if this is going to be a multi-year, if this is going to take, I'd say maybe like a couple of years, as was mentioned, why not instead just allocate money every year towards this this future expense, say $100,000 this fiscal year, 100,000 next fiscal year, and 100,000 like the fiscal year after that, so that we build this special account just for this inevitability, because spending $500,000 is a big deal, especially for students, and I don't feel particularly compelled to do this like right this second. So I'd like to kind of throw out the idea of potentially saving money over a couple years, so that a future board is not encumbered with a massive bill at the time.
All right, Chris, go ahead.
Sure. So that's something for those of you that were on the board last year, you may recall that at different times during the year and over the last few years, we've come forward to the board with what our plans were for any surplus cash that we have sitting in the bank account. And typically over the past few years, we've put some money into a capital reserve for these types of situations. So that absolutely would be something that we will, in the presence of any surplus funds, we would continue to do that moving forward, because even if it wasn't for this air handler and chillers project, there's always something that comes up that we'll need to set money aside for, given that this, I don't know, Phil, how old this building is now, but it's not cheap to look after and it's not modernized in any sense. So there will always be something that we need to spend money on with this building.
60-ish years old, by the way.
Okay, I'm getting a sentiment from the board that this is something that we want to put on hold for a little bit until more options come through. So unless there are any more comments or questions, can I have a motion on the table to pause this, how do I word this, to pause this conversation until more information becomes more available to us, and until we are more clear about the direction of this project. Vice Chair Phillips?
I motion that.
All right, seconder. Director Leclerc, would you like to speak to your motions? Any discussion on the matter? Director Boucher?
Can we add an amendment to the motion to, let's say, save $100,000 a year until for this specific project?
Okay, sure, we can add that onto there. Would you like to speak to your motions? Any further discussion on the matter?
Sorry to interrupt. You would need a motion to amend the original motion if you want to go that route.
Okay, have a motion on the table to reserve conversation on this project until further details and further direction is provided, and to reserve $1,000 each year for the project. Do I have a motion? Vice Chair Phillips, seconder. Director Murphy, would you like to speak to your motions? Any discussion on the matter? Are there any opposed to the motion? Any abstentions? All right, the motion passes with unanimous consent. So onwards to our next agenda item.
Sorry to interrupt. You still need to vote on the motion. You've successfully amended the motion. Now you have to vote on the amended motion. Vote to approve the amended motion.
Okay. Are there any?
So the motion's already, it's already been motioned and seconded. Now you can just proceed to vote on the amended motion.
Can I ask a quick point of clarification? How does voting procedure work in the boardroom with a hybrid model? Is it indifferent where we just, if you approve, you just do not say anything?
Good question. We've never really done it before. So we can really make that decision in real time.
All right, let's go back to the old way of doing it. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, please raise your hand. And any abstentions, please raise your hand.
That's not really fast, right? They're up.
All right, so the motion passes with unanimous consent. Onwards to the next agenda item, which is the.
Thank you, everyone. I will pass that information on to FAM and have a good rest of your meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye, Chris.
Good night.
All right, onwards to the next agenda item, which is the adoption of the consent agenda. These are the monitoring reports, which were not approved last time because there was not enough directors in the meeting. Can I please have a motion on the table? The board of directors adopt the consent agenda as presented. All right, Director Leclerc, that was seconder. Director Murphy, would you like to speak to your motions? Any discussion on the matter? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, all those opposed? And any abstentions? As I see none, the motion passes with unanimous consent. Onwards to conflicts of interest. Are there any conflicts of interest to declare for this meeting? As I see none, we'll move on to the approval of the meeting minutes from the July 11th, 2022 meeting. Can I have a motion on the table to approve of these minutes? Motion by Director Asari and seconded by Vice Chair Phillips. Would you like to speak to your motions? Any discussion on the matter? All those in favor? All those opposed? And any abstentions? I see none, motion passes with unanimous consent. Next, we have the approval of meeting minutes from August 22nd, 2022. So this is a question, I have a question for either executive here, because the meeting that was not met with the forum. Are there any limitations on approving the minutes?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
So since the meeting was not held like at forum and a lot of the things that we did just couldn't be passed through, do we still approve these minutes or do we have to do a special process for them? Or do we treat them like any other meeting?
The August minutes?
Yeah.
Yeah, you would still approve them, so that way you have a record of what was discussed at the meeting, regardless of it was quorum, and then if someone was looking back, they would be able to refer to the minutes of this meeting to show that the board readdressed the matters that it had previously approved. So it's like, it shows you recognizing the error and then correcting the error.
Okay, so can I have a motion on the table to approve the meeting minutes from the August 22nd, 2022 board meeting? Motion by Director Murphy, seconded by Director Leclerc. Would you like to speak to your motions? Any discussion on the matter? All those in favor? All those opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, as I see none, the motion passes with unanimous consent. Onwards to the comments from the chair of the board and CGO. So firstly, I would like to give a congratulations to Clarissa, who is our new board secretary. She was hired over the past summer. We look forward to working with you and look forward to a great year. Secondly, I'd like to speak on attendance to board meetings. As I said at the last board meeting, please let me know if you cannot make a board meeting. It's very important. You know, this job is very important. You all elected for it. So please let me know if you cannot make a board meeting and if you need any accommodations or help from us. If you have conflicts with courses, with work, just reach out to myself, the vice chair, or any of our executives, and we'll be happy to help you out. A week went very well. I was boothing with some directors, so thank you very much for all of you who came out and helped me out with the boothing. It went very, very well. We talked to a lot of people. People are very interested in running for the election in the winter term. So thank you very much for coming out to that. And that's all on my end. So we will go to the comments from the president and CEO.
Okay, thank you, Frankie. So as you may or may not know, a week just came and went, and saw, in my opinion, a lot of success. So student engagement was really, really phenomenal on all fronts. We saw great turnout at our opening ceremonies on both campuses. We saw great turnout at our daytime programming on both campuses. Both Get Involved fairs had a lot of engagement. Nighttime programming as well. Even on the Sunday or Monday night, we had bingo with Tuan in Turret, and Tuan used to host bingo with Wilkes back when he was a VP. But a lot of students have come, like a whole generation of students have come and gone. So no one knows who Tuan is anymore, and we still have 450 people up in the turret at one point. So in terms of students being not only there, but participating and engaging with what we're offering, all signs point to really good. In terms of the volunteer experience, I think our head ices, our O team, our Go team, all our volunteers seem like they engaged really, really well and had a really good time with the breaking experience. The story I kind of recounted today in our meeting was for this year when we were trying to recruit breakers during summer. One of my VPs was asking a couple of students who were on their cheerleading team to come back and do ice breaking again, and they had done it in years prior, and specifically last year they said they didn't enjoy the experience, so they weren't willing to come back. Versus this year where we had breakers out even at the Saturday football game. And students in the crowd were reaching out to breakers, asking them, how can we get involved? How can we be icebreakers tomorrow? And we got them in training and they were breaking the following day. So I think that does a really good job setting the foundation for next year, so we can have more and more O-Week volunteers and open those opportunities up more and more. And hopefully that provides us with an opportunity to build upon the programming we offer on O-Week. Also, to Director Abu Rashid's point, both Campus Life pages are seeing pretty tremendous success. I know the Waterloo page is at over 2,200 followers on Instagram, and fulfilled basically the exact purpose we wanted it to, with respect to being that platform for students to be able to figure out what's going on in O-Week. And it worked in a campus specific lens, so there was no confusion there. So now we're able to move forward, kind of building that out more towards the general student populace. Yeah, and I think a final note there on O-Week, I was really happy with my team's involvement. My team was able to go down for the Brantford Get Involved Fair. We were down for opening ceremonies, or I was down for opening ceremonies on Monday. We were also down on Tuesday for Wayne Hoffman. We also were able to get down there for closing ceremonies as well. And I really feel like we're kind of hitting that point home of actually being like a true multi-campus team, which might not have been the case in years prior, whether it be as a result of COVID or just not seeing that as a need. So I'm really happy with how we're kind of staying true to our word there, and being conscious of that multi-campus lens. And now we look forward to the rest of September, which is quickly passing us by. And I think the biggest thing for me next is the gender and sexual violence rally on September 22nd.
All right, thank you, Shane. Onwards to the, so we have a question from Director Rashid. Go ahead.
I have a quick question for the president, and I'd like their opinion. For the massive success that we've had on O Week, would you be interested in finding some key players and volunteers who did a fantastic job? I think it would be greatly appreciated from them if we gave them a nice small little like commendation from the board. I think thanking those who made this a fantastic success will bring more success further to come. So do you have an idea? Would you be interested in this?
I'll keep that in mind. I know we're working to plan a volunteer appreciation event at the end of September, both on the Brantford and Waterloo campus. That is intended to bring all the orientation week volunteers back together and allow them to have that space to celebrate that success. So I'll bring that, the VP in charge of that is Liam Chapin, and I'll bring that up to him. I'm sure he'll appreciate that.
Yeah, I just want, I think it would be a really nice touch if we give them a nice thank you from the board, because again, it was a fantastic success.
Yeah.
All right, Vice Chair Phillips.
So quick question for you. During the Get Involved Fair, obviously there was the SU clubs organized just out front here. And then there was the faculty specific clubs just down the way past, I believe, McDonald's House. And then over one more area in front of Bucart were some external organizations that had come in, Cineplex, Hudson's Bay. There's a third one as well with tents. And then further past that as well, outside Bricker residents were the Greek life organizations. And I was wondering how the SU came to the decision to put sponsored external organizations that are looking to find students as customers in front of the student organizations that engage students on campus.
So my involvement with the discussion to have Greek life involved basically ended up having Greek life involved in terms of the layout that's set for Get Involved Fair. That is a director of student experience question as well as Rachel Allen question. So I wasn't involved in those discussions. I was just actually involved in that, getting Greek life through the door. So.
Again, I don't really have a good answer for that question because I didn't know that until just now. I did walk around, but I didn't go around the entirety of the campus. And I know that the layout and the space allocation this year was particularly compromised with what's going down on the east end of campus, sorry. But we can definitely follow up and have that conversation, and we can probably take that conversation and continue what we've started offline. Up to you.
But as a follow-up question to that, what kind of, so I understand as well, it wasn't really your decision to make, but I also know that like advocating for Greek life organizations is part of your campaign as president. I was wondering how you plan to ensure that these groups are properly represented in the future.
Represented at the Get Involved Fair specifically?
At the Get Involved Fair specifically, and just that like in the operations day-to-day, they aren't left or shoved to the side. Yeah.
So with respect to the Get Involved Fair specifically, I think my input basically, and after this year beyond with the foundation I can set for, we're still going to work towards that memorandum of understanding, which now those conversations can start to pick back up again. I know we've been in touch with the Dean of Students office, trying to figure out how we can allow Greek life organizations to book spaces. So we're trying to hit those 3 points that you brought up with respect to the Get Involved Fair involvement and the ability to book spaces, and we'll still be able to work together for in terms of that public recognition of the
Philanthropic.
that you guys do. And then hopefully we'll be able to formalize that at some point by the end of the year. That puts that in a place of semi-permanence, obviously condition.
Great, thank you.
Dr. Murphy.
If I can just speak on that as well, I just want to kind of being in the unique position of being on the board and also speaking with Shane kind of externally. We have had really good strides so far and really good discussions. I've done my best to pass along all the information. So I would definitely talk to your representatives, both president and vice president of your organization. And more specifically, if you have anything that needs to be passed along, I can pass along directly during our meetings.
Okay, are there any further questions for the president and CEO? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to comments from the executive director of the COO, Mr. Champagne, you can go ahead.
Yeah, in the interest of time, I'll try to make it brief. A big congratulations to all of the Orientation Week volunteers and the folks involved in kind of getting students back on campus and actively engaged in an in-person experience. It's been very refreshing, although frustrating for those of us who are used to no lines for coffee. It's been actually really wonderful to kind of see the lounges kind of filled up. The lineups, when I'm not in them, are fantastic. It's been a great experience, and the orientation teams on both campuses did a really excellent job kind of making first year students feel welcome, and even upper year students if the opportunity was appropriate. I know that Massa and Meg Bagley and Mackenzie Lake worked really hard on the concert on the Waterloo campus. I won't say it was an unprecedented success, but it's definitely been a long time since we've done an event of that size and scope. So that was really, really exciting to see, and how it was positively received by the community was really encouraging. In my experience, they prefer to shake their fists at the clouds and celebrate those types of things. Now, they may not like the music, but they did recognize that it was a really well-run event, and students dispersed and kind of went amongst the community very respectfully. So I was really dumbfounded, surprised, and pleasantly so. It was a really amazing event. So shout out to them. Shinerama is not quite back to where it used to be, but they have a very successful campaign on both campuses. I think we're targeting somewhere in and around the neighborhood of $50,000 to date, which is really great, given that we don't go out into the community the way that we have over the past number of years, with the exception of obviously COVID. So big shout out to the Shinerama teams. Operationally, everything's kind of up and going. A couple of dramatically different hospitality updates. First and foremost, they had a huge hiring blitz at the Get Involved Fair. I think they handed out north of 100 applications and got almost 100 applications back. So they've got essentially a full staff team hired. Now they got to train them up and get them on the floor and kind of get it up to speed. So hopefully we can kind of get Wilfs open a little bit more regularly and servicing students for more hours than what we've done over the last couple of weeks and couple of years, now that I mention it. On the downside, effective yesterday morning, the Students' Union unfortunately accepted the resignation of the Director of Hospitality Services. J.S. Belliscanthan will be leaving the organization for the first time in 13 years. He's taken an opportunity to become the General Manager of the Graduate Students Association at the University of Waterloo. So a whole spectrum of emotions on that, but we're really, really happy for JS to be able to kind of move on and kind of develop his professional career, but tremendously sad for the Laurier community. He's been a staple and a foundation on this campus pretty much since he stepped foot on it back in 1997. A minor 3-year gap at the last time he was at the University of Waterloo. So it's a kind of weird game of tennis between the two campuses. We're really excited for him. And we will work diligently with the hospitality team to try and figure out what that means for the short term, the medium term, and the long term. And it's entirely possible that some of that will involve discussions with the board, because things cost money, right? So, and we didn't see it coming. So we wish JS all the best. His last day will be Monday, September the 26th. I did thank him for waiting until after homecoming to leave, because there's a lot of activities happening on the homecoming weekend.
One day after he accepts his Forever Golden Hawk Award.
2 days after he
2
accepts
days.
his Forever Golden Hawk Award from the good people at Laurier Alumni. So pretty huge news. I've known JS literally since the first day we stepped on campus together back in 1997. So yeah, sad, angry, happy, elated, celebratory. I'm really looking forward to this opportunity for him. Those are the big hitter ones. Yeah, I think I'll leave it at that.
Okay, are there any questions or comments for the executive director and COO? Director Everett, go ahead.
I just wanted to ask from a technical perspective, what's the next step for operations for this particular role? Are we going to reevaluate the role? And if so, would it be possible for the board to get a statement of merit criteria as was done last time?
So two questions there. So we're gonna walk it backwards. So we basically have now less than 2 weeks to get something in place in terms of leadership to help guide that team and support that team. We met with the hospitality team yesterday afternoon and told them that we're basically going to circle the wagons around them and support them. We certainly don't want to leave them kind of flapping in the breeze. So as I alluded to, I believe that ultimately this solution will be a short-term solution, which will get a leader installed into that to be the focal point so that we can kind of continue business as we've seen it, while we work towards a more medium-term solution, which will likely be an interim and or acting director in that position to kind of help us do an evaluation and get us through at the bare minimum the semester, potentially the entire academic year, while we organizationally potentially take the time to really take a step back and take a look at what that role needs, what the vision of that is in the future, how a Brantford hospitality solution, which is a high priority for our organization, what that potentially looks like and how quickly that looks like. And then this is far off in the distance, but what does a Milton presence look like whenever that campus comes online in the fall of 24? That one's a way further off in the distance. I'm not so worried about that, but I really want to take the time to be able to figure out what's right for our organization while supporting what's happening right now today here in Waterloo, as well as what's happening on Brantford with the Golden Grounds campus, Golden Grounds coffee stand, I guess you can call it, on the Brantford campus right now. That team's been short-staffed for a little while, so it's all about trying to kind of get them set up for success. They have the part-time staff to be able to do the stuff, but we don't necessarily have the management coverage. One of the major shifts that we want to do is bring back the student manager program that we kind of got away from a number of years ago. All that to say, when we get to a point of a decision, we're happy to have another one of those statement of merit criteria is kind of put towards the board so that they're well apprised of what the operational decision is for that department. Certainly don't want to keep anybody in the dark. So
Perfect. I mean, thank you very much. I very much look forward to what your recommendations are going forward, and especially considering, looking at this new Brantford food solution. Yeah, thank you very much, Phil. I really appreciate it.
Question, Phillips?
Quick question for you. While I was down in the international news stand, I believe it's called, the nice gentleman working there had 2 questions for me. One is if he could have a few paper copies of maps, because a lot of students come in there and ask for maps. Just thought I'd bring that to you.
yep.
The second thing that he was wondering about was with respect to convenience dollars and flex dollars. A lot of students are confused; they can't use their flex dollars there. I don't know why not. I'm sure there's a good reason, but I just wanted to alert you that that is an issue that he's facing.
Yep.
That's all.
No problem. If the board is interested, happy to prepare a brief for the next board meeting to kind of explain why that doesn't happen in terms, not the maps part.
Yeah.
We're talking about the meal plan stuff. There's a variety of different reasons, no pun intended with INS Market, as to why that doesn't happen. So I'm happy to prepare a brief and have that on record for the next board meeting. Great. For the record, Veritas Cafe is also not available on those systems. And there is valid reasons for that.
Okay, I think a brief would benefit us all. I just about a situation that's going on. So that'd be greatly appreciated. Thank you, Mr. Champagne. Next up, we have the direct inspection committee reports, 2 of which were talked about and approved at last meeting, but we could not, well, we have to approve them again because of a lack of quorum from the last meeting. So before I go into the into the direct inspection committee that we didn't go over last time. I'd like to just approve of the ones that we've already discussed. So can I have a motion on the table to approve the EL2D direct inspection committee report? By Chair Phillips. Seconded by Director Rashid. Can would you like to speak to your motions? Any discussion on the matter? All those in favor? All those opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, so the motion passes with unanimous consent. Next up, we have the ends committee. So can I have a motion on the table to approve of the ends direct inspection committee report? Motion by Director Murphy, seconded by Director Leclerc. Would you like to speak to your motions? Any discussion on the matter? As I see none, the motion passes. Oh, sorry, all those in favor? All those opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, onwards to what was not discussed at the last meeting, which was the financial conditions and activities. Ian, go ahead.
Sorry, just to clarify that in the ends direct inspection committee report, the committee recommended a policy change. You've approved the report, but you would need to need a separate motion to approve of the recommendation that was made by that committee.
Okay, so we approved the report. Can I have a motion on the table to add in the amended wording into the ends committee, the direct inspection committee report? Motion by Director Rashid, seconded by Vice Chair Phillips. Would you like to speak to your motions? Any discussion on the matter? All those in favor? All those opposed? And any abstentions? So I see none, the motion passes with unanimous consent. We'll now move on to the financial conditions and activities. I'm just going to share my screen and Ian, if you can, please give me.
I think that's me, actually.
Okay.
My audio cut out. Just one moment. I can't hear you.
Oh, Ian might have to do it.
Yeah, Ian, you might have to be you. Make Frankie either the co-host or able to share. Sorry, thought it was me.
That's wrong. You don't have the permissions. So what's the procedure if I need?
Director Rashid, do you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, my phone disconnected for some reason. I wanted to ask what happened after the approval of the report. The audio cut out and I couldn't hear anything.
So we're going to go over the financial conditions and activities direct inspection committee. Just waiting to share my screen. Vice Chair Phillips.
May I be excused to use the restroom?
Sorry.
May I be excused to use the restroom?
Oh, yes.
Denied. So all I ask is-
May, I don't know, can you? Yeah.
Sorry, the boardroom cut out there. Are you wanting me to share that?
I was gonna say go to the wall.
Have you given Frankie permission to share?
No, you all cut out, so I didn't hear that.
Yeah, so.
We need you to do that, please, and thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, so like I have a document on my computer. So Yeah, if you can please give me access to share my screen.
Actually, oh no, you can still do it. Never mind. I mean, please don't put that in the minutes. Thank you.
Should be able to now.
Perfect. Okay, so the EL number 2D, Direct Inspection Committee, was struck on June 13th, 2022, with the mandate to review and assess executive limitation 2D. The committee ensured that the evidence presented was appropriate and up to date. The wording of the policy is sound, and that the organization was captured in policy. The membership of the committee consists of Board Chair Doug Judichek, Director Amasari, and Director Murphy. The committee has met on one occasion since its establishment on September 13th, 2022. All members were in attendance. For the EL number 2D Direct Inspection Committee, the committee had discussions on the following items prior to making their decision. If the wording of the policy was still relevant to the organization, if the scope of the organization was captured in the policy, how recent the policy was looked at and revised, if the scope of the organization was captured in the policy. The final decision of the committee consists of 0 recommendations to the policy at hand. So that is EL number 2D, financial conditions and activities. Can I have a motion on the table to adopt and approve of this direct inspection committee report? Motion by Vice Chair Phillips, seconded by Director Leclerc. Would you like to speak to your motions? Is there any discussion on the matter? I see none, we'll move to voting. All those in favor?
Sorry, my phone's having some connection issues.
No worries. All those opposed? And any abstentions? As I see none, the motion passes with unanimous consent. And the direct inspection committee reports have all been approved. We'll now move on to direct inspection committee elections for EL2J, hiring practices and unpaid staff, and GP2F, the board committee principals. So we will move into elections for starting with EL2J. Do you have any nominations for this? So firstly, how many directors, including myself, have to be on each committee?
All the direct inspection committees are the same, so the same formation as the previous ones.
All right, thanks for clarifying. So do I have any nominations for hiring practices of unpaid staff? Vice Chair Phillips?
I'd like to can I make 2 nominations?
Sure.
I'd like to nominate Directors Abu Rashid and Directors Murphy.
Director Abu Rashid, do you stand?
I'll stand.
Director Murphy, do you stand?
I do not stand. Sorry.
Okay. Do I have any other nominations for this committee? I would like to nominate Director Leclerc. Director Leclerc, do you stand?
Sure. Yes.
And one more. Vice Chair Phillips.
I'll nominate Director Goodwin.
Dr. Goodwin, do you stand?
Yep.
Okay, so can I have a motion on the table to approve of the election of directors, Abu Rashid, Director Leclerc, Director Goodwin, and myself, Chair Doug Chair, to the EL2J Direct Inspection Committee. Motion by Director Murphy, seconded by Vice Chair Phillips. Would you like to speak to your motions? Any discussion on the matter? Does see none, we'll move into voting. All those in favor? All those opposed? And all those who abstain? Director Goodwin, do you abstain?
Yep.
Okay, so the motion passes. I believe that's 5-0 to 3. Move on to the next Direct Inspection Committee, which is GP number 2F, the Board Committee Principals. Do I have any nominations for this committee? Vice Chair Phillips?
I would like to nominate myself, and I will stand.
Okay. Do I have any other nominations? I would like to nominate, oh, go ahead, Director Rashid.
I'd like to nominate Director Murphy.
Director Murphy, do you stand?
I stand.
And I would like to nominate Director Mastery to the committee. Director, do you stand?
I stand.
Okay, can I have a motion on the table to approve the election of Director Phillips, sorry, Vice Chair Phillips, Director Murphy, and Director Mastery. Motion by Director Leclerc, seconded by. Have a seconder. Director Abu Rashid, would you like to speak to your motions? Any discussion on the matter? All those in favor? All those opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, the motion passes 4-0 to 3. Now go on to the fall meeting schedule. We've already discussed the attendance options and expectations. We'll reiterate, please reach out to me if you cannot make board meetings, or if you'll be late, or if you cannot make direct inspection committees or any committees, things like that. We will help you out if you need any assistance. Vice Chair Phillips, would you like to comment?
Question for you, Mr. Chair. How many meetings can a director miss without sending regrets before they are in poor standing board? Do you know?
I believe that's a question for executive directors.
I'll throw out to Ian. I feel like the number is 3 for some reason.
Usually is.
Yeah, it might be worth everyone just kind of collectively looking at the board code. We could pull up the board code of conduct right now, just as a good exercise.
Sorry, can you repeat that? I think you cut out a little bit.
If you want to share your screen, we can pull up the policy manual, and then just, it might be worth the board kind of collectively taking a look at the board code of conduct, where those expectations are laid out.
Okay. Dr. Murphy?
May I please excuse the restroom while we fill this up? Thank you.
So it'd be GP2C in particular.
Uh, I just wanted to clarify that one on our attendance discussions. Yeah. There it is. Okay. So it's three meetings that you can, that directors are permitted to miss without regrets. What happens in the instance that a director has missed 3 or more meetings without regrets?
From my understanding, we wouldn't go directly to punitive actions if we're removing the director. We would talk to the director, see what's going on, and try to work out to see if there are any alternative arrangements that can be done, to see if there's anything we can do to help. And in the worst case scenario, I believe that director would be removed. Am I correct in that?
As far as my understanding goes, yes.
Okay. So I'll reach out to those directors who have missed 3 or more meetings without regrets, and we will proceed from there. So next up is the fall meeting schedule. I think we have enough directors here to come up with a comprehensive schedule for the rest of the fall term. So let me. Vice Chair Phillips.
So just open discussion about the meeting schedules for the rest of the year. Did we determine that a daytime meeting time for the board was not possible due to personal commitments? Or is that something that we can look at now that the school year started and everyone has a better understanding of their schedule? To clarify, is anyone not able to meet during the day during the week? Okay, just a couple directors.
Sorry
Uh,
about that.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to speak on,
Yep.
I'm actually able to meet during the day. My schedule's kind of been moved around. Just all my courses end at pretty much 3 every day.
Vice Chair Phillips.
Does this time continue to work for everybody, 7:30 PM on Tuesdays? No, it's not as early as we would like to meet. But is this a time that we could continue meeting at for the rest of the term?
It actually doesn't work for me. I have a class at this time. So if we could take another time, greatly appreciate that. Director Murphy.
Would Monday around this time work?
That works for me. Vice Chair Phillips.
To my understanding from operations, does that cause any challenges with supplying board materials on time because it's right after the weekend?
Well, no, based on the hours that are required, I want to say 72. So we would need to kind of get those to the board on the Friday, which is, I feel like we did that last year.
Yeah.
We did have Monday meetings
Yeah.
last year.
I have a
So-
class
so
7 to 10.
Director Burchett.
Would Wednesday at this time work for other directors?
No, maybe not for me, but coming up on this schedule. Vice Chair Phillips.
Okay, this is earlier, oh, never mind. Thursdays in the mid to late afternoon. Like would 5 PM work on Thursday afternoons for the directors?
A class at 5:30.
Me too.
What about 3 PM? On Thursday?
I have work.
I also have class.
Is it possible to collect everybody's class schedule and then maybe we can kind of have a meeting and put together 2 or 3 of the best options and present at the next board meeting what works best for folks?
Okay, yeah, we could definitely do that. So. Pleasure, Phillips.
I was just saying, should we strike the next meeting then? Just so we have that on paper?
I believe the next meeting is already.
Yeah, it's my understanding that that was set already.
Right, yeah, the 27th at 7:30.
Yes.
27.
Director Goodwin.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, if we email schedules and stuff, that would be a lot easier for me, as I have like intramurals and other sports, and I'm not sure when they're exactly happening. Like the schedules haven't been released yet, so it'd probably be better.
Very though.
What's the name of that?
So those won't always be reliable.
I would
Pardon?
also suggest that the board should be a priority.
Seconded.
Okay, Director Murphy.
Do you want our school schedules or like not extracurriculars, like ones that can be shimmied around, but like other responsibilities?
Yeah.
Because yeah, as much as the board is my priority, I am also in charge of a few other things that cannot be moved.
Yeah, I understand that. If something cannot, like absolutely cannot be moved, any schedule or an extracurricular that absolutely can't be moved, we can try working around that. Yeah.
Good, sorry, did you say my name?
No, I thought your hand was raised. Vice Chair Phillips.
What's the name of that website where you send it to a bunch of people and they can fill in their availability?
Doodle.
Doodle. I read it. We should do one of those.
Okay,
So my hope would be that we'd be able to get everybody's schedule and then pick a few dates and then maybe even do a doodle that way.
After having collected everyone's schedules?
okay, I think that's a good idea, so we have like a narrowed down set of dates and times that we can actually meet.
What I might suggest is that you set a deadline for when schedules need to be emailed to you.
Okay.
So that we can do the work in a timely fashion and present it hopefully for the next board meeting.
Okay, so I think that we should definitely get this in before Friday of next week. This way we can get the board package out before the meeting, and we can sort of set schedules then. Vice Chair Phillips.
May I recommend that we set a deadline of this Friday to get everyone's school schedules? There's no reason I can't see a reason why anyone should be able to send them. And then
Okay. It's a good idea.
What's going on?
Go ahead.
Is anyone on the board right now currently in COA? So theoretically, then I would recommend that the board do its best to provide some availability during the day. I just know we've talked in the past and the board has kind of indicated a willingness and a desire to have a variety of guests attend, and it's very challenging to have those guests attend in the evening. So might be something worth considering.
Okay, thank you. Director Rashid.
Although I may not have co-op, Tuesdays and Thursdays, I work full-time. Which would basically mean it's impossible. Just so you know, on Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays, I have a 10 a.m. And a 5:30 p.m. And on Wednesdays and Fridays, I have, I think, a 11:30 as well as Friday. So I can like Friday midday might like after in between classes would be a good time for me, but otherwise it's very difficult because I have to walk everywhere.
Okay, well, we'll definitely keep Friday open as an option. It doesn't seem like anybody has any real like objections to Friday. I understand it's not the ideal day to do it. However, if needed, we'll do it on a Friday, but first, let's just get the schedule in before this Friday. So that would be the 16th. So can I have a motion on the, do we need a motion for this or?
I don't think so. I think you just tell them that, hey, I need your schedules by this time.
All right, so all directors, please send me your relevant schedules, both school and work. This for the deadline is the 16th. Please get it to me as soon as possible. Director, go ahead.
I just have a question. When do you think you'll be able to figure out that schedule? Because I work with the school and I put my September availability in, but I need to put the rest of the term in. So I want to make sure I'm not setting myself up for a day that we've meeting.
Yeah, so by Friday, I'd say Friday by 5 o'clock, I should be able to get that in.
What I might suggest is have it due by Friday by noon. And then let's connect you, I and Ian, maybe Shane, on Friday afternoon, and we'll work through it and see if we can get it done before the end of the day.
Okay, that works perfect. Awesome. So Friday at noon, please have your schedules in. Okay. Let's do the next item. Sorry, I just lost my place here.
We're on finance committee elections.
Yep, yeah. Here's just glitching. There we go. Okay. So finance committee elections. So before we approve and acclaim the director that we talked about last week, I'd like to reopen the floor for any discussion on any further nominations for this committee. Since not many directors were available to come to the last meeting, and I'd like to give our directors an opportunity to voice if they would like to be on this committee. So do I have any nominations for this committee? Commissioner Phillips?
I'd like to nominate Director Avershade.
Director Baruchet, do you stand?
Yes, please.
Okay, with that being said, we will either go into elections or somebody would have to resign their position. Commissioner Phillips?
I'd like to resign from my position on the finance committee.
Okay, so with that being said, can I have a motion on the table to approve the acclamation of Chair Doug Dudiche, Director Batuvia, Director Goodwin, and Director Baruchid to the Finance Committee. Motion by Director Balmasari and seconded by Vice Chair Phillips. Would you like to speak to your motions? And discussion on the matter? That's seen none, we'll move into voting. All those in favor? All those opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, the motion passes 5-0 to 2. So we will now move on to the ad hoc social media committee election. We talked about this last time. We're opening up, well, we are going to reopen our Instagram account, which I believe is the Laurier Votes account. So we'll change that name to the SU board account. And as discussed previously, we'll also be opening a TikTok account. So I believe last year when this committee was struck, we had 4 directors on it. Is that a direction that the board wants to go in? Do we want more? Do we want less? 4 4 is quite a big number for a committee. So is there any intention to reduce it or increase it? Or keep it at 4?
I feel like we can just keep it at 4. It sounds like a lot, but realistically, if we're reopening both the Instagram and a TikTok, I'd rather not lessen it and start out with less.
Director Lepore?
Running an Instagram is insanely easy. I've done it before. I've never used TikTok, so I can't really give a lot of input there, but 4 sounds like way too much for this.
Okay, Director, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I checked the second that point. I feel like maybe 3 directors is a good way to go. Maybe 1 and 2 for TikTok, or 2 for Instagram, and 1 for TikTok.
Okay, Director Murphy's, would that work?
Yeah, I should have started with this. What is the committee doing?
So
Like,
essentially, the committee serves to advertise the board, talk about what we do. Basically do what we would do at a club booth, we'll just put it online. And we will also talk about events that would come up, such as a board meeting or a by-election or a regular election, hiring that we'll be doing, things like that. It's pretty ambiguous as to what this committee actually does. It's mainly any engagement at all about the board on social media. Director Baruchik, go ahead.
I'd like to echo the sentiment of Director Murphy. Just because we have 4 directors doesn't mean like 4 directors will be running the accounts. And having more people could potentially lead to, I don't know, more ideas, better ideas. So
Okay, so you would like to keep it at 4. Okay,
idea is to have less people. In case some people are busy, they may not be able to, we may not be able to produce content, which defeats the point.
hang on, can you repeat that? You cut out for a second. Director Baruchik, can you please repeat that?
Can you maybe type it?
Sorry, I couldn't hear anything that happened after I spoke. I'm having connection issues.
Yeah, can you repeat what you said or type it in the chat?
I said something to the effect of, if we have less directors, it may mean that we may not be able to produce as much content that will actually bring out the message that we're trying to bring out. So if we have less people, that may not be efficient. Like, we don't actually need like 4 people like really working on the accounts, but like coordinating, coming up with ideas and producing would require more people.
Okay, as I see like somewhat of a division on the board, we'll put this up to a vote. All those in favor for 3 directors on the committee? Okay, all those in favor for 4? All right, so 3 directors it is. So we'll go into elections. Do I have any nominations for this committee? Vice Chair Phillips?
I'd like to nominate Director Murphy.
Director Murphy, do you stand?
I do stand.
Any further nominations? Director Lasari?
I'd like to nominate Director Abu-Rashid.
Director Baruchik, do you stand?
I'll stand.
Director Murphy?
I'd like to nominate Vice Chair Phillips.
Vice Chair Phillips, do you stand?
I will not stand.
Okay. I will nominate myself and I do stand.
Really funny if you did.
All right, can I have a motion on the table to acclaim directors, directors Murphy, Abu-Rashid, and Chair Del Giudice to the ad hoc social media committee. Vice Chair Phillips, do I have a seconder? Director Amasari, would you like to speak to your motions? Any discussion on the matter? Does see none, moving to voting, all those in favor? All those opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, the motion passes 5-0 to 3. Sorry, 4-0 to 3. Moving on to the board secretary hiring committee update, and so we have hired a secretary for the board, Clarissa. We're very happy to have you here, very excited to work with you. If you have any questions about taking minutes, about just anything that pertains to your role, please reach out to any of us. And we'll make sure to add you on all of the emailing list for board resources, such as agenda packages, Zoom links, and things like that. Vice Chair Phillips.
I would say thank you to Ian for filling in the interim and doing our meeting minutes for us. That was great. Looks like it was just Ian, actually. I'll take back that thanks for Phil. And yeah, thank you, Ian.
Absolutely. Thank you to our operations team. So go ahead.
I just have a quick question. I'm gonna arbitrarily call it May. We had discussion about potentially hiring a second board secretary to kind of deal with the backlog of minutes that are missing from last year's board. Has there been any discussion about that? I don't know how many folks you interviewed or.
We did interview some folks. There wasn't any discussion on that, because the board kind of came to sort of like a standstill on that, not too sure where to go. The contract doesn't include that. We can reopen the hiring process again and give a small honorarium to those who.
So maybe when we connect on Friday to talk about the schedule, we can just kind of have further that conversation a little bit. See where we're at there.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so onwards to the Brantford Student Life Levy Committee election. This is for board representation.
Chair, I did have a question about the previous topic.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, actually, first things first, I just want to say thank you, Ian, for your wonderful meeting minutes. And congratulations to our new board secretary. The question that I had is, are we not able to pull from the existing pool of qualified candidates? Hypothetically, because we already did all the work, we vetted their cover letters, their resumes, and then interviewed them, and there were quite a few highly qualified candidates that would fit this job particularly well, but it would be a shame to have to put them through the whole rigmarole again.
I think that would be part of the conversation that we would have on Friday to confirm.
So
Thank you.
We'll discuss all of our options on Friday. Reaching out to previous candidates is definitely a good idea, because there were some very qualified candidates that we interviewed, and I'd be happy to hire one of them for sure. Are there any further questions or comments on this discussion? Okay, so I see none, we'll move onwards to the Brantford Student Life Levy Committee. So this is where we will elect 3 additional directors to be on this committee, and 2 of which must be from the Brantford campus. So do we have any nominations for this committee? Vice Chair Phillips.
I will nominate Directors Abershade, and I apologize for not remembering who's our second Brantford director. No, is it Director Goodwin? I think. Samar. She's not present. Am I able to nominate her? Otherwise, we won't have the required membership.
I don't think we can nominate her because she's not here to accept whether or not she'll stand or not.
So I might suggest that if she's actually required, she doesn't have a whole lot of choice, and that we can kind of make that part of the follow-up discussion, because I believe she's one of the board members that may or may not be in good standing at this moment.
Okay, so
You can nominate an abstention.
Okay, so nomination for Director Hashmi. And we need one more director. Do I have any further nominations? Vice Chair Phillips,
I'll nominate myself.
and you, Stan.
Sure.
Perfect, okay. Can I have a motion on the table to acclaim Directors Hashmi, Dr. Rashid, and Vice Chair Phillips to be members of my budget committee? Motion by Director Murphy and seconded by Director Leclerc. Would you like to speak to your motions? Any discussion on the matter? As I see none, we'll move to voting. All those in favor? All those opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, the motion passes. I believe that was 4-0 to 2. So we will reach out to Director Hashmi about her membership on the committee in addition to her role on the board as a whole. So next up, we have the ad hoc honorarium committee update.
Just have a quick comment about the SLL, just for those that are on that committee. There are a couple of dates already, they're not set, but I know that the admin person that you had emailed back and forth with might have even been today or yesterday. Those, like, expect those invites soon.
Any further comments for discussion? Okay, does see none, I'll yield the floor to Vice Chair Phillips for the honorarium committee update.
Thank you very much. So I've gone through and made some amendments from the previous meeting, though I recognize we don't have a quorum, so I will just simply reiterate them for the members here. The biggest and pretty much the only change made was the reporting of this new role that we would like to bring forward. And that is the addition of slide here. So they would also report to the Director of Policy Research and Advocacy to assist with some of the ad hoc responsibilities on a day-to-day basis. Does that capture the scope of the reporting there? Ian, does that sound okay? Great. That's pretty much all the changes that we have. I don't really know how to go forward. Do I present as a recommendation? I don't know if it's quite ready to vote on it today. Right now it's just a report. It's not quite a, I don't know. Can it be recommended? Can I make this recommendation? Can we motion to vote on it?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay. Frankie, do you want to pull it up? Oh, pardon me, sorry. Sure, LGBJ.
Is it in here?
Oh, it would not be. Does that mean that it would need to be voted on in the next meeting because it hasn't been sent in? So I don't believe it's actually part of that package.
Probably smart, Doc.
Yeah, maybe if we can have one final committee meeting just to kind of finalize the proposal, get it kind of all put together, and then can put that package to the board at the next available meeting.
Great. When does that need to be in by, just so I make sure I don't miss it?
What day is 27th is a Tuesday?
Sir?
So we would probably want to submit it by that Friday.
Great, it will be submitted by that Friday. That is
Third, right before homecoming.
okay. Sounds great. Well, I will make the revise the revisions and submit into the board for review and voting on our next board meeting.
Perfect. Are there any questions or comments for the Vice Chair? Okay, so I see none. We will move on to announcements. So just one announcement, the president and chair of the board evaluations and board self-evaluations are scheduled to take place next week during the September 27th, 2022 board meeting. It's very important that, we all come to that, see where we can improve, how we've done well, and how we can proceed for this academic year. Are there any further announcements that the records would like to share? Anything exciting going on in your lives? Oh, Ian,
Don't we have an in-camera meeting?
yes, we do. That's after this. Ian, go ahead.
We do have one other piece of new business. So the university secretary's office was in communication today to let us know that there was a Senate resignation. So that triggers the process whereby the board can fill that vacancy. And according to the Senate bylaws, the board is able to nominate the candidate or next candidate who received the next highest votes. So basically the next candidate up in the list of candidates who ran for election. So there's a number of candidates who were up for election who didn't receive enough votes. So the board can nominate to or motion to contact the next available individual on the list from the previous election to gauge their interest, and the board could then motion that they be appointed to that open Senate spot.
Okay, so I guess we could motion for that tonight, hypothetically. Vice Chair Phillips,
I was under the understanding that we only had 12 applications and that all 12 of us were acclaimed as board members. I don't know if we have.
Sorry, the university Senate.
So we would put a call out for nominations. They would kind of, is it a call out for people that ran?
No, sorry. So when it comes to the Senate of Wilfrid Laurier University, the Senate bylaws allow for the next runner-up from the previous election to fill the vacancy. So from the 2022 elections, we have runners-up that we can contact, and then the board can appoint them to fill that vacancy. So for the Senate, it's more straightforward. We don't have that same capacity for the board of directors.
So who reaches out to the candidates? The Secretariat's office?
I mean, we can, or the Secretariat office can. We probably do it in conjunction with that office.
okay, Director Boucher.
I had a quick question. Is this in relation to the hiring committee for the new VP academic?
No, this is just an empty, the student senator resigned their Senate seat. So there's an empty student Senate spot.
Okay, just for I guess this might be a conflict of interest or not. I don't know. I am also a student senator, so maybe I should not have a part in this discussion.
Okay, so is there any further discussion on the matter before we motion to contact previously the next person on the list? Vice Chair Phillips.
So sorry, just to interrupt. What I might suggest is that the board could, given that we have more than one individual, the board could make a motion that the students union is in contact with the first runner-up from the 2022 election for Wilfrid Laurier University Senate. And if that individual declines the opportunity, that same outreach could be given to the next runner-up. That way we don't have to come back to the board if the first individual declines. So there are 4 potential candidates. So you could make a motion that in consultation with the University Secretariat's office, we reach out to the next runner-up from the 2022 Senate elections, and if accepted, that individual be appointed to the vacant Senate spot.
Okay, so can I have a motion on the table that the board of directors approve that Wilfrid Laurier Students Union reach out to the next person who is the runner-up for the 2022 Senate elections, And if that person does not respond or is not interested, we move on to the next person, the next runner up. So motion by Vice Chair Phillips, second by Director Murphy. Would you like to speak to your motions? Any discussion on the matter? All those in favor? All those opposed? And those who abstain. Okay, motion passes 5-0-2. So next up, we have action item summary. So in addition to reaching out to the directors who have missed 3 or more meetings, I will discuss with our executive directors and our president about the hiring practice, about the hiring a new secretary to pick up the meeting minutes that were not picked up from last year, and to discuss the schedule for this upcoming year. So with that being said, can I have a motion on the table that the board of directors proceed to in-camera discussion? Motion by Director Murphy, seconded by Director Leclerc. Would you like to speak to your motions? Any discussion on the matter? That's none, we'll move into voting. All those in favor? All those opposed? Sure, okay. And all those who abstain. Good, so I see none, the motion passes with unanimous consent. And we will move in camera.